Despite their simple appearance, the damage caused by Richard's fire hoops is remarkable. It gives us an indication of why the weapon was so critical to the knights. Due to the highly flammable compounds smeared around the hoops, they burn for up to 30 minutes and are very difficult to extinguish. 2 or 3 soldiers could easily have become entangled with just one of these blazing hoops. Throwing these down in their hundreds, the knights sowed panic and destruction among the besieging soldiers.
They actually caused a lot more damage than all the other arsenal of weaponry which they had available to them.
In their own small way, the fire hoops played a critical part in the successful defense of Fort St. Elmo, far longer than the knights had anticipated or the Turks had hoped that the siege would last. So they might just have tipped the balance between success and failure in what was the pivotal battle of the 16th century.
The knights came within days of defeat. By September, they had just 600 men able to fight, but they held out. The Ottoman army was depleted and demoralized. They gave up the siege and sailed back to the east.
These two forces met, they fought it out, and the Christians came out on top. This time, a little bit of skill, bit of luck, some new weapons, but ultimately the Christian West would triumph because it had a more powerful economy, more innovative technology, and within 150 years, the Ottoman Turkish Empire was a backwater, and it was the Christian West that ruled the world.
In our next ancient discovery, we investigate an archaeological site that holds dark secrets. We explore a mysterious world in which the ancients used their knowledge of technology to recreate the realm of the dead here on Earth. In northern Greece, in the middle of the 20th century, archaeologists uncovered a strange site that had remained hidden for over 1,000 years. It was a mystifying maze of corridors and rooms leading to a central sanctuary. In a stone chamber hidden underground, the archaeologists discovered figures of ancient gods. More intriguing were the remains of substantial machinery. Now, ancient historian Michael Scott has set out on a mission to discover the site's secrets.
Well, since 1953, finds have been coming to light at this site that has left us with a mystery. We have a heavy-duty machine here. We have counterweights made of solid iron. We have ratchets, which would have been used as a kind of braking mechanism. But what is this machine? Opinions are divided. On the one hand, some people think that we have some kind of catapult, or indeed several catapults.
The iron machine parts date to the 3rd century BC. If they had a military use, experts suggest they would probably have been part of a large catapult that could have been used to defend the site. There is another, more compelling theory, that the machinery was somehow connected with secret occult ceremonies that were practiced here. The site was a cult shrine dedicated to necromancy, the Greek word for consulting the dead. Pilgrims, both rich and poor, would come from far and wide to discover their fate by speaking with the spirits of those who had passed on.
Also found at this site was a statuette of the goddess Persephone. Persephone, the wife of Hades, the lord of the underworld. Persephone, the woman that Hades came back up from the underworld into the real world to grab and take back down to the underworld as his bride. So what we may have here at this site is not some kind of defensive farm or keep, but actually an oracle of the dead. And these heavy-duty weights, this lifting mechanism, may well be something to do with that oracle.
But why would a place of religious ceremony need heavy machinery? Perhaps the pilgrims here needed help in visualizing the ghosts they were consulting. It was not unknown at the time to give mechanical inspiration to worshippers. Was this machinery used to summon forth spirits and not part of a catapult? Michael is taking the route the ancients took to the site, but this time to unlock its mysteries, not to take part in them.
You chose to consult an oracle of the dead if there was particular information that only that dead person knew that you now needed. You went to the oracle of the dead as something of a last resort. You had to be bold, strange, or desperate to go anywhere near them.
To recreate the awe-inspiring experience, Michael follows the same route that would have been traced by an ancient pilgrim, as described by Herodotus in his book, The Histories, written in the 5th century BC. Herodotus locates the Oracle of the Dead on the river Acheron in the northwest of Greece. It still flows into the sea near the ruins of our ancient site. In Greek mythology, the Acheron was one of the rivers that flowed into Hades, the hell of the ancient world. The souls of the dead were ferried across by the boatman Charon. Visitors to the oracle would have passed this way and been reminded that the underworld was near.
To come here on the Acheron River, to follow that route in search of the Oracle of the Dead, is to get back into the footsteps, to make the journey that those ancients made all the way to try and find the answer to their questions. And so it makes it so much more real, so much more exciting, so much more vivid to understand exactly what they felt as they made that journey.
The Oracle of the Dead was called the Necromanteon in Greek, from which we get our word necromancy, speaking with the dead. The shrine was known in ancient texts of Herodotus and Strabo as one of the gates of hell. Destroyed by the Romans in 167 BC, it was buried in the rubble of time. The site was rediscovered and excavated in the 1960s, which is when the machine parts were discovered. The location corresponds to descriptions in the ancient texts. This is the Oracle of the Dead and a gate of hell.
This is the place believed to be the heart of the Oracle of the Dead. It's where the visitors to the Oracle could get in touch with the souls of their dead relatives.
The maze of corridors and rooms begins to make sense. Someone who consults an oracle is known as a consultant. After rituals of purification and sacrifice, he or she followed the narrow and winding passages to the central sanctuary. This is where the mysterious machine parts were discovered.
After the long stages of preparation, and perhaps up to 29 days of fasting, the consultant came here, the final turn before entering the room of the Oracle of the Dead. Here, he may well have been fed with hallucinogenic beans and herbs that were meant to give him an intensely heightened sense of the ghost that he was about to experience. And so he took that final turn and went into the room.
Upon entering the oracle chamber, the consultant would be disoriented by the natural hallucinogens, their psychedelic properties enhancing the pilgrim's perception and emotion.
When you came into that room, it would have been dark, just like where we are now. The priests would have been chanting more and more incessantly, creating the atmosphere. And then, out of nowhere, out of the mists of time and the underworld itself, came a vision of that spirit, and perhaps a voice echoing up, answering your question.
How this happened was shrouded in secrecy, secrets that our researchers are hoping to discover. They are investigating the theory that the mechanical parts found at the site belonged to a machine that lowered the ghostly apparition that ancient writer Herodotus describes in his account of the Oracle of the Dead.
If these apparitions of ghosts did appear, then it's most likely that they came down from above, a first floor from which they were lowered on some kind of crane mechanism. But to get any further, to know for sure, we need to test it out.
Perhaps these apparitions were human. Ancient technology expert Richard Windley is investigating the theory. Using the iron components recovered from the site as his template, he is reconstructing a mechanical lifting device that could have been mounted in a room above the central sanctuary.
There are one or two rather mysterious objects which are sort of cog-like. Now, my feeling is they're probably not cogs. They look more like some sort of ratchet device. And this would be consistent with a kind of simple winch technology.
Michael has joined Richard at the Ancient Discoveries testing facility, where they will try to work out how the ancient priests created their spirit from the underworld. To lower the priest, Richard has constructed a winch-based crane that lowers a piece of rope using a hand crank, similar in principle to a winch on a tow truck. The machine is constructed out of iron and wood and has a ratchet on the side of the shaft. This can be used to stop the weight returning back down.
With a big long handle, you can actually apply more leverage to a relatively small shaft, and around this shaft we wind the rope, so that for every sort of major turn of the handle, the rope is only moving a few inches. We call this mechanical advantage. The handle may move actually through several feet, whereas the rope's only moving through several inches.
Using this mechanical advantage, Richard's machine can lift or lower up to 300 pounds on the rope by applying only a few pounds of force on the handle.
To test this crane lifting mechanism, we've recreated the archaeological site. Imagine I am the consultant coming in to the Oracle of the Dead. Richard, up on the first floor, replaces what is now the church at the site, where there would have been a hidden first floor with the crane tucked away. And below that, we have our stuntman John, who's going to play the part of the priest who would have been let down into the consultant room to pretend to be the spirit of the dead come to answer the question.
Such a machine was common in the theaters of the ancient world to lower gods from heaven onto the stage. Here, it is used to summon a spirit from hell. In their disoriented state, in the smoke and noise and flickering light of the sanctuary, consultants would believe they had seen a spirit from the underworld.
As the consultant came into the chamber and saw through the mists the priest pretending to be that spirit of the dead the consultant had come so far to talk to, the consultant may well have finally got his answers to the questions he had sought.
The consultation finished with the pronouncement of the oracle. The consultant was sworn to secrecy about what he had witnessed, or rather believed he had witnessed. He was ushered out of a side door, firmly believing in his encounter with the dead.
There wasn't a question of whether they believed or not believed. There was no alternative to the fact that the gods controlled the world and that the dead lived in the underworld. That was the way things were. And so when they came here, when they saw, or at least thought they saw, the spirits of the dead rising once again, it's almost certain that they would have believed what they were seeing, because they had no reason to question it.
Archaeological discoveries in Greece and at the Ancient Discoveries testing facility have revealed the technology behind the supernatural. We now know that the spirits were summoned not by magic, but by machinery. Religions, cults, and secret